Hello world, people, I hope you're good. I want to share in this video a new kind of Neovim configuration that I've been using, and more specifically it's a single file setup. And I know, with Neovim we all are kind of used to setting up all these nested folders with Lua and all these different things for organization. And I've done that myself and even made videos on it and stuff like that. But I want to talk about a kind of more simple approach in this video. So I'll show you it now. So if I go into my config directory and into Neovim, as you can see, there's just the init.lua pretty much. So if I open this up and just go to the bottom quickly, you can see this is 67 lines of code, which isn't much really. And I just want to show you kind of the capabilities of it, considering it's quite a small file, and show you that you can kind of do a lot in that amount of code, and also kind of go over the config afterwards. So I'll give you the quick demo now. So as you can see, we've got syntax highlighting, we have plugins, so we have a status line at the bottom. I also have a git signs plugin, but you won't see that here because it's this isn't a git repo. We have also LSP features, and we have telescope. So if I do space FF, you can see we can find files. And although I don't use, so this is one of the reasons actually that it's kind of smaller in size, although I don't use like autocomplete features or IntelliSense in my setup, I still actually have LSP servers installed. And if I show you quickly, if I do space TD, you can see that I'm actually using this to see if there's any errors in my code. So obviously this is at the moment just the Lua language server is giving me a bunch of warnings for some stuff, so I can click on them and use them. So I think this looks pretty nice. It's a pretty decent setup. I also have a file tree and stuff like that. So let's go over it quickly, and then maybe you can make your own kind of minimal Neovim configuration and possibly share it as well, because I'd be curious to see. So this first bit of code here is us installing the lazy plugin manager. Basically what this does is it searches your system to see if you have lazy installed, and if you don't, it downloads it from this GitHub repo, and then it adds it to the runtime path. So the runtime path in Neovim is basically a group of directories that Neovim looks in and runs on startup. So basically what this means is every time you open Neovim, it's going to load lazy. So I hope that makes sense. So this is just kind of, as I've written at the top here, I think this might even be from the documentation itself for lazy, but it just bootstraps the plugin manager. Next up is our global settings. So it's pretty typical to set up a custom kind of key as a prefix for your own keybinds. So in this case, it's space, which is quite typical. And then we use this space to set up our own keybinds, which don't interfere with Neovim's keybinds. So for example, I can do space FF, which I've set up to find files or look for files in my directory. I don't know what this line is. I think I copy and pasted it from somewhere, to be honest. And then here we have, I'm going to delete this one actually. Here we have like my general settings. So we have the cursor line. You can see I have this line when I'm moving up and down. We have the number on the side. We also have a relative number. So as you can see at the top there, it says right at the very top of the numbers, it says 22. And the reason this is quite good with Vim is because I can press 22K and it will take me right up to the top. And then I can do 22J and it will take me back down. So that's the reason relative numbers are quite good in Neovim. And then these last few settings here are just for basically for like tabs and spaces and stuff, but it's nothing important. I just like having them set up for. And expand tab, I'm pretty sure this turns tabs into spaces, so just for consistency. Now another setting I have here, which might be kind of weird, is I have diagnostics disabled. So if you're not using an LSP or don't plan to, don't worry about this. But if you are using an LSP, normally what will happen is you'll get like warnings and errors popping up next to your lines of code here, if there are any. And I just personally find this distracts me. I'm halfway through writing some code, and if I go to save it or something, I get a bunch of errors and stuff coming up. Then it kind of breaks my flow. So what I do is disable them, and then I use the plugin that I demonstrated to then go through any and find any that I have afterwards. So after this, this is where I actually install my plugins. So there's not many here. So we have the LSP config, we have a theme, we have a Git plugin. You won't see it in this directory because it's not a Git repo. Status line, telescope, which is what I demonstrated. You can sort of search for files and stuff like that. File tree, which I've also showed you guys. Tree sitter for syntax highlighting, and then Mason, and then Mason's LSP config helper, which are both for the LSP. So let me demonstrate some of these a little bit more in detail. So if I press Mason or :Mason in the command section, you can see you can install language servers here. So here are the ones I've got installed, and then if you want to actually have them run when you open up a buffer in different kind of projects for different programming languages, you add these lines of code here. Now something to note is that if it has a piece of text on the side of it in this kind of sort of less visible gray color for me, that's the name you need to use in your setup. So for example, this is lua-language-server, but the text next to it says lua_ls. If the name doesn't have anything, you don't need to worry about it. So you can see in my setup here, I've actually wrote lua_ls. So that's the name you need to use if it has something like that. There's also another part in this plugin thing here that says color scheme. So this, to be clear, this isn't the color scheme of your Neovim setup. This is the color scheme for your plugin manager. So if I do :lazy, you'll see that this follows the same color scheme that I've specified, that I've installed, that is in my Neovim setup. But just so you're clear, this color scheme is for the plugin manager itself. And then checker just checks for any updates for your plugins. Now after this, I have my custom keybinds. Now it's important to have these set after you've set your global ones, just to make sure that they work properly. So for example, if we're setting a prefix of space and then we want to do stuff with that space, if we put these beforehand, it can mess things up. So it's good to have it in this kind of order. I've actually just pulled most of these directly from the Telescope documentation on GitHub, so I just copied them in. To be honest, the only ones I really use are find files, and I also set up this diagnostics one myself to do those diagnostics that I demonstrated earlier. And then I also set up a couple keybinds for the file tree, so I can toggle it and stuff like that. You might not even need the focus one. And then lastly, this is the command that actually sets the color scheme for Neovim. So I've put color scheme as capuchin. And that's pretty much it, guys. It's a very simple setup. It's less than 100 lines of code, and I love to see what kind of thoughts you guys have on this, and if you have any kind of minimal configurations yourself, or you just want to kind of mention anything to your config or this config, just drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and yeah, peace.